early on in the season, obviously everybody was talking about the loss of Francisco Lindor and where's the offense going to come from. It seems like it's come, and it is just non-stopping over the last few days. Franmil Reyes just hit a home run in the Indians game currently. They're up 4-0 as we stand currently. But, with this offense, it really seems like it's taken off here as of late. What's been going on with the Indians, and where have they found all these embarrassment of runs?
Well, I mean, I think that the biggest source is going to be Jose Ramirez. It has been Jose Ramirez and will continue to be Jose Ramirez. He knew that heading into the year. He knew that he had a lot of responsibility, especially with Lindor not being there. I know last year Lindor's bat wasn't too impactful for the Indians, and it was mostly Jose and Cesar Hernandez who were the source of consistency throughout the entire year. And I think that that was why the Hernandez signing was so big this year. And I know that he got off to a slow start to start the season, but now he's starting to find his groove. I know he's already had a multi-hit day today, and it just seems like he's a little bit more patient at the plate. He's slowing the game down. He looks way more comfortable, especially after moving back into that leadoff spot. I think that did a lot for him too. So you're starting to have that tone set at the top of the order. You have Jose Ramirez in the middle of the order, Franmil Reyes, who's been pretty hot this year, and he's trying to figure out ways to not be as streaky as he had been in the past, because we've seen him be as super hot and then a couple days later it gets super cold. So I think that he's trying to figure out ways to make sure that that can stay even keeled for longer periods of time, and he's done that so far. And I think that then you're just starting to have that be a little bit more contagious. This team needs a spark. And it seems like more so than any other team that I've seen, they need to have that one source of somebody bringing the spark to the offense, and then everyone else sort of jumps in. And that's always Josh Naylor, it seems like, waking up a little bit now. And then you have Eddie Rosario, too, joining in on all of the fun. So I think that as long as you can have contributions from more than just Ramirez or Reyes on any given night, you have a second or third guy in that offense, they're going to be in a better spot than most people were expecting them to be heading into the year.
Now, you mentioned Jose Ramirez, J-Ram, being the spark of that offense. Over the last few days, it's been H-Ram, Harold Ramirez, being that spark for the Indians. Take us through the outfielder that the Indians have added in, as, it seems like he's been a huge boost to that outfield.
I mean, yeah, I think that they've been looking for any sort of piece to be able to rotate into the outfield. They knew what they were going to expect from Eddie Rosario, even though it took him a little bit to heat up getting into the season. They knew what they were going to get. I mean, they've seen it for the last few years in Minnesota. They sort of had the same idea of what they were expecting from Franmil Reyes as the DH, and if he would move into the outfield from the in NL games. And then Josh Naylor, too, gave them a taste of what he could do during the postseason last year. But rotating through that outfield can be difficult because they really weren't sure what center field would hold for them after Oscar Mercado and Bradley Zimmer both didn't earn a spot on the opening day roster. And so there was a lot of question marks yet again about the offensive production from the outfield. And so whenever it didn't really work, I know Daniel Johnson was only here for 2 days, so it was tough for him to really get a feel for it. But when he came up and he didn't get a hit, and then you just start mixing things up, and the more you mix things up, it seems like it's harder for guys to really get into a groove. So when Harold Ramirez came up and he started to just settle in from day one, that's a big piece for this offense, because they've just desperately looked for that, for a guy who can just step in and be like, all right, I got this. And so far he's been able to do that. And it was really cool the first night he talked to us. He said, I'm just trying to make myself like good enough to stay on this team. I just want to stay on this team. And I thought that was really neat. And I think he's going to continue to put in the work to be that perfect fourth outfielder.
Now, Ramirez has been, obviously very productive over the last few days in that outfield. And somebody who's been playing outfield has been Josh Naylor. He seems like he's been heating up here as of late. How key do you think that he is going to be for this offense going forward, and a key part of that lineup going forward as well?
I think he's huge. I think that having that bat to be able to bring anybody else that can actually help the offense out other than Ramirez and Reyes, I think is going to be a big benefit for this team, because two guys on any given night just can't get the job done repeatedly. They're going to need some help from other people. We saw last year in the postseason, not just what Naylor's bat can do, but also what his energy can bring. He's next level excited, and I think that does a lot for this team. I think with as young of a roster as they have, yes, there's an experience, but I think there's also a benefit to having that type of energy. And excitement and fun in the game. I think that there's so much that can be said about how much that can do for a dugout, and especially if they hit some ruts, which are inevitable to go through during 162 games. So I think that his vibe, his energy. I know that guys have already talked about the way that he celebrates in the dugout after his home runs or whatever it may be. I think that he just keeps everybody light in the dugout, and that's a huge benefit for them, especially for a team that's so young and missing some leadership.
And while Naylor's been, very productive here as of late, one of the other ones who's been on the other side of the coin, that's been Jake Bauers and the production that we've seen out of first base. Obviously he had a home run on Tuesday night, but obviously the run production and the actual production at the plate has been a little bit lacking when it comes to the first base spot. Do you see possibly Naylor being somebody who fits into that first base role if they go away from Bauers and that Yu Chang combination that they have there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've started to see that a little bit. Tito's obviously started to work Naylor in over at first base, and that's showing that there is a possibility that that could be the move if the Indians would move on from Bauers over at first. You could have Naylor come up to first base, and then that frees open right field for Daniel Johnson if they'd want to take a shot at him later in the season. I mean, there's just endless possibilities. If they didn't want to have Bobby Bradley come up and take first base and leave Naylor in right, they have multiple options if they would try to go away from Bauers. But the biggest thing about Bauers and keeping him on the roster, even though they were doing that platoon between he and Chang, it was just trying to see what he has and what he could bring and just giving him one last look, basically, because he didn't come up in 2020. 2019, he had a rough season, as we all remember, but they traded for him for a reason. They saw what he did in 2018, and he had a lot of potential then. And I know he was a highly regarded prospect as well in the Rays organization. So I think that they just wanted to make sure that they saw everything that they thought that they could out of him to make sure that they were making the correct decisions. And so they do want to give him a little bit of a window here. And now that his quality of contact has been pretty good over the last few days, a few weeks even, and the fact that he seems to be at least looking a little bit more comfortable in the box than when he did at the beginning of the year. I think that's a good, at least step forward to maybe give him a little bit of a longer of a window to continue to prove that he does deserve to be on this roster.